be careful because I sit there and they put a piece of wood there so you wouldn't fall off. It's roll call.
Good evening. Roll call.
Yes, Commissioner Boland.
Present.
Vice Chairman Peterson.
Present.
Commissioner Metcalf.
Present.
Commissioner Duran.
Present.
Commissioner Bacon on the phone.
Present.
Commissioner Federico. She's not on.
No,
Okay.
just emailed me. She's not going to make it. She's
Oh, okay. All right, and Chairman Halby.
Present.
As Chair, we have a quorum.
Fantastic. Welcome, everybody. All right. First order of business, approval of minutes from March 4th, 2020.
I move that we approve the minutes from March 4th, 2020 meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes approved. All right. Old business? None? On to new business. First order of business, we have Cool PZ 19 KLC 3, a rezoning request for Cool PZ 19-12-56 20-01-01 20-02-06 and 20-03-11 and 20-03-12 initiated by property owners for approximately 6.88 acres of land located at 1013, 1017, and 1115 East Vakayan Road and 1033, 1122 East Lauren Lane in the KLC subdivision, Coolidge, Arizona, changing the zoning from planned area development to agricultural, legally described as follows.
We probably don't need to read the legal.
Thank you. Director Lopez?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for being here, and we really appreciate your participation. I know this is kind of awkward, but the seating we have today is what we're going to use for the City Council on Monday. So we're testing it out, see how it works, and thank you for being here. This is one you've seen before. We've been changing the zoning. And first of all, I want to acknowledge that Carol Alejandez is here. She does a lot in the office, for those of you that don't know her. Carol helps us a lot. I'm sure you talked to her on the phone. I just wanted, for the record, to thank her for being here tonight.
I thought she did all the work at the office.
Yeah, we we're being recorded.
I've heard that from somebody else.
I wanted to maintain some time of credibility on camera. Carol also came in before this meeting and cleaned and sanitized this entire room.
Everything is all cleaned off and everything. Norm was here, the city clerk. I've been doing that in the office and making sure everything's safe. And so we really appreciate all the hard work, her and Brittany.
So if you don't die, you can thank Carol.
Yep.
Okay.
If we do die, who do we thank? You?
Yes.
No, blame the chair, the director. That's Gilbert's job.
So as you know, this is where we've been converting the zoning from PAD because of the setbacks and the back and the accessory buildings to agricultural, and everybody's on board. I think, Tim, the light colors are ones that have already changed. Is that correct?
That's correct, Director Lopez. All these green ones are cases you guys have heard before and have moved on to council and have been finalized. This round of 5 is the responses we got when we sent out a letter with applications to everyone remaining and said, hey, by this deadline, if you'd like to do this, get your application in. After that, if you desire to do it, you will just have to pay the fee that goes with it.
So this is our effort to get as many people as we can to do it, the program we have now where we're just going through and helping people get these squared away. So staff recommendation, of course, is to approve the rezoning applications on the ground. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the general plan as we have before, and we'll answer any questions you may have.
I have no questions.
No questions? No. No.
Phil?
Director, we don't have any questions. So at this time, we'll open it up to the public. Nobody from the public. So we'll close it to the public and entertain a motion.
I motion to approve Cool PZ 19-KLC 3 as presented.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Chairman Halby, items B, C, and D on our agenda related to, oh, I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun.
Right.
Disregard.
C, D, and E.
We'll get to that on record.
Perfect. All right. So we're good for the next item, item B?
Yes, yes.
All right, next item, item B, Cool PZ 20-02-07, a rezoning request initiated by Juan Acosta for approximately 0.32 acres of land located at 120 West Coolidge Avenue, changing the zoning from industrial I-2 to general business C-2, legally described as follows.
Mr. Chair, Commission members, this application, this gentleman approached us to change zoning from I-2 to C-2 to do some C2 commercial businesses. So this is a welcome change to convert from I-2 to C2 in this area. This used to be part of the weigh scale and all that for the Hendricks property. If you remember, we had a junkyard there and we had a lot of problems with it. But they're gone, so this property's been sitting there for quite a while, and for a while we had somebody trying to just use it to live there, and they weren't authorized to, so we got it cleaned up and secured, and so now these new owners have approached us, or potential owners, to change the zoning. And Tim, I think, is it proper for us to talk about what they want to do with this thing?
Yeah, so kind of why they're doing this, Chair Halby and Commissioners, is you can see on the map everything here in the general plan is designated downtown core, and within that general plan designation, I-2 zoning isn't even allowed.
Right.
But it does exist, and it has, and it can remain that way. Last year we rezoned these city properties to C2 and then some off the map. The restaurant is allowed in I-2 also, but the change to C2 reduces the setback burdens imposed. They're a lot more in I-2 than C2, so they can utilize a greater portion of the site. They're talking about building a restaurant with some outdoor patio area predominantly. There may be some limited indoor seating, but it will be a welcome addition to this corner that's not super pretty right now, and the more things we can get downtown, the better. So we are recommending approval of this rezoning request, allowing them to a higher chance at success in developing it.
And a restaurant would help, get some traffic downtown, and as we hopefully will get more density eventually, and as we get more businesses fill in some of these lots, that'll help with our efforts for downtown revitalization. So we do support this, and we'll answer any questions you may have.
Tim, what is the residential zone boundary? I see 75 feet on I-2. I see 45 feet. What does residential zone boundary mean to me?
Commissioner Bolin, the residential zone boundary, it refers to any residential zoning district. So just to the north of this, these houses here, they're zoned R3 residential district. Yeah, it's okay. I'll use this hand. So from that zone boundary, they have that setback to any buildings, which is significant for I-2. It's less in C2. Now, the alley is 20 foot of that setback, because alleys and streets, though depicted on this map as zoned, do not actually have zoning.
So, but what you're saying is he still has to not build a building within 25 feet of that rear property line. Is it going to the property line of that residential zone boundary, or is it going to the physical building on that residential property?
It is the property line. So he will factor in the alley, have a 25-foot rear setback.
Yet
and
it's a
then he will
commercial,
reduce.
it's a commercial lot which doesn't normally have big setbacks.
And without that residential boundary, if it abutted other commercial property, his rear setback would be 15 feet. But this applies anywhere in the commercial or residential districts where you abut residential zones to provide a buffer, perhaps, and disturb the residential uses less.
I thought you could build right on a property line in a commercial zoned area.
We do not have any zoning districts that allow zero lot line setbacks that exist in the city. Our code has a downtown overlay district that could be applicable to the downtown area where you do have zero lot line setbacks, like the post office or the vet shop and all that. But that zone has not been defined through our zoning map or zoning ordinance, and so the provisions of it have no effect.
So on the properties on the boulevard, many of them are built directly on the property lines. My building that I own is on a property line. Circle K and on the South Circle K is on the property line that they own. That was legal at the time they did it, and that's been changed now. Is that what you're telling me?
Commissioner Bolin, I can't speak to whether it was legal at the time. It was obviously done. Those uses can continue in their current form from now into infinity.
But if the building was to burn down, you would not allow that to be rebuilt exactly in the same footprint that it was in?
That is correct. They are non-conforming uses, and upon a percentage of remodel greater than 50% of the valuation of the building or a site expansion or all that, all new building and construction will comply to current codes. So I guess the advice is don't let your building burn down.
Well, in a case like that too, I think if it was because the property wasn't large enough to support, you could probably apply for a variance, I would think, where the council may consider approving that because of the conditions of the property and the fact that when it was built, it was grandfathered in. I know a lot of codes allow you to rebuild something within a year, of something burning down. I don't think we have that provision, correct? In our code.
There are different things covered in Article 14.
I didn't bring my code book.
Non-conforming uses. I will say, and a little off topic, but the downtown overlay zone that I was referencing a minute ago, we are working internally on that to apply that to areas that's appropriate to, such as the downtown core and probably some limited portions of Arizona Boulevard. But it's going to take a little work because within that zoning district in the code, there is a list of specifically prohibited businesses that needs to be pruned.
I'd like to see more on that in a meeting.
It'll come back to you to define this as an overlay district, much like the manufactured home overlay, the infill. It will come to you guys. Pretty much it's a zoning code amendment. So you will hear it. We will public hearing. We will move on to council, public hearing, then they can act in effect. And those zero lot line setbacks that are referenced and those can be applied to the properties that fall within that zone designation.
Yeah, I'd like to see that because I don't like having a situation where a number of buildings in this city are not conforming to what is our current code.
Commissioner Bolin, that buildings that do not conform to current code is par for the course in any city who ever changed their code.
Yeah, they're still legal.
Downtown Florence, Casa Grande, any of these towns that built much like Coolidge did back when on zero lot lines and stuff, new construction just doesn't really do that anymore, with the exception of, say, a strip mall type development.
But it makes sense to me to have zero lot lines in a business district downtown. To have 30 feet of space between two buildings when you've got lots that are only 50 feet wide to start with, and that's a commercial lot in Coolidge is 50 feet by 140, and now you're telling me that I've got to have a 15-foot side on each side. My building now becomes 20 feet wide on my commercial lot.
Well, Commissioner Bolin, I see your point, but not all sites are appropriate for all uses. And the National Insurance Association and the National Fire Association would argue against these zero lot lines.
Okay, well, I'll argue for them, so.
Well, we are working on it. It is not going to apply to the entire boulevard,
No, I understand.
but there are places where it does make sense. It may not be a contiguous boundary. We may designate pieces where it's appropriate.
And could it be somehow designed based on the size of the lot that they're working with? Because you're looking with a 50-foot wide lot has got setbacks are one thing, but if you're working with a 150-foot lot, that setback is not a big problem.
It's factoring the lot size in is something that could be considered when we're drafting this, and we will certainly look at that. Oftentimes, if that zero lot line is really affecting the viability of you building on that site, you are not going to be able to meet your parking or landscape requirements either. So we will look at these things, and we will bring this back for some discussion based on what we find prior to moving forward with an actual amendment.
All right.
That way we can take both commissioner input and public input.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? No? All right. This is a public hearing, so we will open it to the public. Anybody like to step to the podium, please do it this time. We'll close it to the public, and I'll entertain a motion.
Chairman Helby, I move School PZ 20-02-07 be approved as written.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Chairman Halby, items C, D, and E, the applicant has withdrawn their application, so we will not discuss or conduct public hearings on these matters. We will move right on to item E.
All right. So as we move to
Or F.
item F, I will actually recuse myself
Thank you.
at this time. And I will turn it over to you, Hannah.
All right.
Does she have to read on?
All right,
No.
so
Up to how far?
Cool BZ 20-02-05, a proposed amendment to the zoning code amending sections 1004.d, 1008B, and 1008C, modifying requirements related to medical marijuana. Do I need?
No, you don't.
Okay.
Vice Chair, you can stop right there.
Vice Chair Peterson, there's a lot of stuff here, and I'll kind of go through piece by piece. The driving force behind this amendment is to allow for outdoor cultivation of marijuana for cultivation sites licensed within the city of Coolidge.
Okay.
The state of Arizona allows for outdoor cultivation of medical marijuana. Pinal County has passed an ordinance allowing it, limiting it to 5 acres, and we use kind of both these factors in crafting this. Our suggestion ultimately ends up with a 5-acre cap. There's other cities around the state that do it. At one point in time, when we originally drafted our marijuana codes, there was the smell of the product was of concern, and so they limited it to indoor cultivation. With recent changes allowing hemp to just another agricultural crop, it smells the same, it pretty much looks the same. I mean, it's kind of a moot point now, and it would give our local businesses another thing to use for their success. So the first portion of the amendment here, 1004.d, adds an exception to the 6-foot limitation on fence height requirements in zoning districts. Agricultural is considered a residential zoning district, and we are limiting the outdoor cultivation to agricultural zones. Outdoor cultivation is also allowed in I-2 and I-1 zones. Our medical marijuana cultivation is allowed in the industrial zones, but we are not advocating outdoor cultivation there. The state of Arizona requires a 10-foot solid fence with a monitored security system around outdoor cultivation sites. So that's the reason to the amendment to 1004.d, allowing for that exception to the 6-foot max wall height. The next portion, section 1008.b, actually has nothing to do with the outdoor cultivation. It's just piggybacking on, call it pork barrel. I'm not aware of any other business in town that have restrictions on the days they operate. It seems a little unfair. I mean, I don't think you even have to wait till 10 o'clock to buy beer on Sundays anymore. So the suggestion is to remove that. A lot of people who perhaps utilize those services, Saturday and Sunday are their days off, and maybe they don't make it home by Thursday at 7 to get there. So it would allow broader access for patients. 1008C1 amends that medical marijuana uses be located in a permanent building except allowed by C10, which is the provision for outdoor cultivation. If it's not in this outdoor cultivation, it has to be in a permanent building, which leads into 1008C3, removing the prohibition on cargo containers for medical marijuana uses. Currently, you cannot do that. A cultivation site or a dispensary can have a cargo container on site as an accessory use, but it can only be storage. You cannot have marijuana plants in there. You cannot process marijuana. You can't store marijuana seeds in there, but you could put equipment or fertilizer or things like that on site, like a shed. Now, we don't want cargo containers just plopped down and used for marijuana, but the provision of located in a permanent building, I guess this is where this is going to come in. A cargo container can be a permanent building if built to code and placed on foundations. A lot of other municipalities let these go. We'll kind of run through these before I get to what I really want you to see. And these are just a few that were easy to find. There are a lot of vendors fabricating these things for marijuana uses. This is a cargo container laboratory specifically retrofitted for marijuana uses. It would be placed on some type of foundation. It would be permitted. It would meet building codes and hence meet the provisions of being a permanent building according to C.1. So we're not just throwing something on the ground. Citing these are also subject to, building setbacks and whatever site plan regulations you have. And these are an effective, secure, and probably cost-effective method to do some of this stuff. Given where these things are located, visually it shouldn't be a big deal. We can require painting or such things during design review, but it doesn't seem to pose any inherent risk. Some more examples of retrofitted containers. And as you know, these containers are beyond this. They're growing in popularity for a lot of uses. I mean, this is what people think when you say offices, right? But concession stand. But, there's a office complex. That's kind of cool. And so you guys read. I know you've seen stuff like this, piggyback with the tiny house movement, and there's just really a lot of things you can do with them. They're super sturdy, highly customizable, and I mean, your limit's kind of your imagination, I suppose, on these things.
Yeah,
I would live in that.
We made sure to check with our building official on what it would take to make it permanent. It's just a matter of really putting in a piece of flat steel on the sides with an anchor and just welding it down. It's real simple. And that converts it into a permanent structure as long as the foundation underneath is sturdy enough to hold it. So it's not it's very doable. So we checked on that side of it too.
That's correct. And I'm as Director Lopez says, that conversation with the building official was initiated by a previous discussion item we had here at the
Right.
commission.
Yep.
About shipping containers and tiny homes and what the obstacles were to using those kind of things. And they're, for the most part, from a building standpoint, it's not a zoning standpoint. But
Yeah,
so
it's
that
working.
is the next part of the amendment. C.5 under 1008 is slightly amended. It used to say cultivation facilities may not emit dust fumes, all that, and has been modified to storage facilities for marijuana, mirroring what Pinal County has, because obviously if you're growing marijuana outside, it's going to emit fumes. You're going to smell it. And then number 10 comes down to what is basically allowing up to 5 acres of outdoor cultivation.
Tim, there are requirements for the fencing and all that, right?
Yes, Director Lopez, that's correct. And they aren't governed by any city requirements on the fencing. Arizona Department of Health Services does require that 10-foot solid fencing with a monitored security system, and they will inspect and look at it. It's not supposed to be something that's easy to climb. You know, it's not going to be chain link. It has to be solid. You can't see through it. And we are recommending approval of this, and we would be happy to entertain any questions that you commission has.
Anybody? No? All right, well, we will now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, please step to the podium and state your name and address. And so now,
Tune us out.
so we will now close the public hearing. And if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
He got louder.
I move that we approve Cool PZ 20-02-05 as written.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion,
Any opposed?
oh, all those opposed? Motion carries. All right.
All right. Reports. Director Lopez.
Chairman, we have an article that came out in the paper that we did with the FIDA, just talking about projects within Coolidge still moving forward. You know, the housing with, we've got some new builders where they're in plan review. D.R. Horton, KB Homes, you know, their plans are in, and some of them are, I think D.R. Horton's in second review. Carol knows better than I do, and so I know they're moving forward. We just asked the paper not to talk about what subdivisions are going in yet until they give us the okay that everything has been past escrow and all that. But we still have, and Wade Journey changed their name to Century. What's it called?
Century Homes.
Century Homes, yeah. So they're moving forward still. Richmond American bought some signage for the chamber, from the chamber, the little blue ones, the directional ones, and they're joining the chambers, so they're going into the center of McClellan Meadows. And our senior housing project down on Spruill and 4th is moving forward. It's all sheathed up. They still haven't put the roof trusses on yet, but they're going to pretty quick. You know, our Casablanca is moving forward. They're moving dirt. Everything's going well. If you go south of town, the big $100 million solar facility is they started their substation. The grading permits are issued, so they're
There by the Goldman Farm.
right. So that's moving forward. I think the fee sheets are turned in, and so it's a matter of them writing us a check, and we're stamping plans and getting everything. There's a lot of activity out there. So if you want to see, just off at 87, you can see a lot of equipment running out there, so it's moving forward. S-Power is not far behind, the one over on 11 Mile Corner and Selma Highway. So we're working with them on a few things. I know Tim's been real busy on the phone with Carissa, and so these things are going forward. So we're happy to see that. So the article is very positive in the paper, and just so you know, it's there. And then we did a short one also on just encouraging people that since so many people are home with their kids, maybe they can help them clean up the weeds. So I'm sure I'll be real popular for suggesting that with the kids. So anyway, that's all we have at this point, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. Hopefully this thing will be over with. Life will resume back to normal. Hopefully we pray, hope our citizens are okay. Don't affect a lot of our people. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll call to the public. Okay. Nobody from the public. We'll make a motion to adjourn, but before we do that, I personally would like to say thank you guys. Thank all of you for being here. I know this is trying times for all of us, and thank you guys for what you do, what we all do for the city and the community. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all so much.
Night, everybody.
Have a good evening. It's kind of windy out there, so